full of joy, rejoicing, many concerns and joys. When I was a youth pastor back in Flushing, New York and Flushing, I read one book, I picked up one book titled Unchristian. And this book talks about this book was written by this researcher group, Barna Group, that does a lot of research. It basically posed one of the questions, what do you think of the Christians? And there are three things that talks about Christians and how our society, especially the young generation, sees the Christians. And the one top on the poll that they received was that the Christians are hypocritical, hypocrisy, trying to be someone that you're not. We're trying to be someone, but we're not. We pretend. And there are something that are very similar to that we all struggle. Envy. Very similar to hypocrisy, but envy is wishing that we're someone else's skin. And envy happens when we start to compare one another, start to compare myself with others. For example, oh, I did so many things, so many good things, but look at other people. They get blessed a lot more than I do. What's happening here? It's as simple as that. Envy is wishing that you are someone else's skin. Here, the story takes place in Sea of Galilee, where Jesus first called the disciples. Simon Peter was there. John and James, the son of Zebedee, were there too. Here, oftentimes, this story is neglected because if you're fond of Easter and Ascension, this story falls right in between the Easter and Ascension. This happens when Jesus was resurrected. He reappeared to his disciples. Today, 7 of them. 5, we know their names, but 2, we don't. So Jesus appeared to these 7 disciples. And here is the test of hypocrisy and test of envy happens, especially with Peter. I know, I'm not too sure if you love Peter, but I personally love Peter. Why? His strong-willed. Do you remember when he decided to follow Jesus? And when Jesus said, "This is how I'm going to die," and Peter was so upset, "I will never forsake you. I'll never deny, I will never betray you." Do you remember that? But at the end, Peter denied Jesus 3 times. Denied. I don't know this man. I really don't know this man. This story, John 21st, happens after the disciples saw Jesus dying on the cross. They're now totally lost, displaced, unemployed. Their teacher no longer is present. So they are totally lost their hope. Nothing. So what are they going to do? And you hear Peter saying, "I'm going to go fishing." Which makes perfect sense because that was his original occupation. He was a fisherman. So he said, "Okay, I'm unemployed following this man that I thought he was a Messiah, but he died. So, okay, I'm going to go back to fishing." And you hear this conversation that Jesus is watching him, watching the disciples fishing. And you hear, I'm just trying to find, here in verse 5, Jesus said to them, "Children, you have no fish, have you?" I don't know about fishing, but my dad loves fishing. And sometimes I go with him and go out fishing. And there are days that you catch a lot of fish, but there are days that you don't catch anything. But days that you don't catch anything, this will be the last thing that you want to hear, right? "Children, you have no fish, have you?" And you can definitely hear Peter's response. You can definitely hear the disciples' response, "No!" Because it's the last thing they want to hear. "You have no fish, have you?" "Yeah, I mean, we cast out our nets over the night. Entire night, and we caught nothing." And Jesus telling them, "Have you caught anything?" I'm saying it very nicely, but it must have been furious. No! I spent an entire day, almost half or 1/4 of the day, to be out here trying to catch fish. Nothing. Here, fascinating thing happened. Jesus told them, okay, you cast the net the other side. They followed. They did it. And they caught how many? I think this is fascinating. They caught 153 big fish. I guess they had time to count them. I thought that was kind of funny how John, who wrote this Bible, were able to remember the number that how many fish that they caught. 153. So they did it. And this, John, who writing this, was saying to Peter, hey, it's the Lord. Hey, it's the Lord. That strange man were standing far beyond and telling them, cast the net other side. John knew it was the Lord. John and Peter know, hey, it's the Lord. Hey, it's the Lord. And you can see him. He's so passionate. He's just so excited. You can see he was naked. But he put on his garment and he jumped right into the ocean. He swam right across the ocean, went to the shore, and met with him. While the other 6 disciples were sailing the boats to the shore. And you can see here, Jesus prepared the nice meal for Peter. For somehow, he already had a fish boiled. And you can probably question at this point, where did he get the fish? Right? But if you think about it, he created fish. In the book of Genesis, he created everything, so he created it. So I guess out of blue, he just made the fish. And he boiled it. And Jesus inviting the disciples, hey, come, eat breakfast. Have you eaten anything? To me, that's very touching. I think one of the questions that we ask, especially our family members or relatives, or those who are close to you, instead of asking, how are you? I'm always touched by them asking me, have you eaten anything? To me, that's very touching. I know how are you can does a lot of things. How are you can lead up to many questions, but have you eaten anything? Why are they asking me? Have I eaten anything? Yes, I have, or no, I have not. They're asking because they care for you. And if you have not eaten anything, they want to feed you. To me, that's love. Have I ever shared that I used to be 200 pounds, big old guy, high school year? Yeah, I love to eat. So that question is it's in my heart. Have you eaten anything? And sometimes I say yes, sometimes I say no. That's exactly what Jesus told them. Have you eaten anything? Come, have breakfast with me. So they came. So 7 of them gathered around Jesus with this boiled fish. Nice boiled fish. Breakfast. And it's in the perfect setting. Nice outside in the shore. You hear the ocean waves crashing. A nice sunrise. And then you smell this fish. Wow, I'm hungry. Jesus invited them to eat. And here, the test begins. The test of hypocrisy begins. Jesus asking Peter, in verse 15, Jesus said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? Jesus is asking Peter, do you love me more than all these? Your 6 disciples and this fish? He must be really hungry because he's casting land over the whole overnight. He must be really hungry, but do you love me more than these? And Peter said, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. That's it. He's putting the test of hypocrisy. Peter thought that he would never betray Jesus. He wanted to be someone that he was not. Right? He done it. He betrayed 3 times. So Jesus is giving him this test of hypocrisy, but he passed it. I love you. Whew. But then the second question comes right up. The second time he said to him, Simon, son of John, do you love me? He said to him, Yes, Lord, you know that I love you. Okay. I guess he must have forgotten his first question or the answer that you just heard. So maybe you're asking me the second time, but I love you. But here, more than the story itself, the original text which was written in Greek, can give us more of the insight here. When Jesus asked Peter, do you love me? He uses a language called agapao. And you heard this term before, right? Agape. Agape is what? Divine love. Divine sacrificial love. That doesn't depend on conditional setting, but the God. Usually it associated with God's love, who always gives. So Jesus is asking Peter, do you agapa me? And Peter said, there's another term, phileo, which is like affection, kind of friend level love, kind of friendship love. So Jesus is asking, do you agapa me? Agapao me? And Peter said, I phileo. I'm fond of you, Lord. The second question when Jesus asked him, he used the same term, do you agapao me? And Peter said, I phileo you. I'm fond of you, Lord. And here, the third time Jesus asked, and this time, it's not do you agapao me, it's do you phileo me? And Peter said, I phileo you. What do we hear? Jesus asking for agapao love from Peter. But then Peter responded with, phileo, I'm fond of you, Lord. God lowers his expectation to meet with us. Two questions he asked agapao now. At the third time, he asked phileo. But then we know that it is us who raise the bar, who raise the expectation, not God. God lowers himself to meet with us. God lowers himself to meet with Peter. Do you phileo me? And Peter said, I phileo you. See, sometimes we get in this habit of raising the bar for our own selves. And then what comes is brutal. We start to raise the bar and we start to compare one another. I don't know if you can follow that natural flow of that. We start to raise our expectation before God, and it is so hard to meet it, and then we fall. But it wasn't God who raised the expectation, it was us who raised the expectation. God indeed lowered his expectation to meet with us. He did with Peter. The last, and all the answers that Jesus had given to Peter, I love you, and Jesus said 3 times, tend my sheep. Okay, let's backtrack a little bit. If Jesus wants something from you, and you're unable to give, Jesus might have said, hey, how many times do I expect this from you? Can't you just know me and can you just give me this? I'm asking you agapao love from you. Because you know me. But Peter is, I phileo you. See that expectation, difference in expectation? But always you can find it in Jesus' answer. Tend my sheep. I don't care about where you stand, but I care for you. And I care for the people. So tend my sheep. Go, tend my sheep. The moment when Peter thought the test of hypocrisy ended, It's when the test of envy kicked in. If you have a Bible, we can turn into, towards the end of it, in verse 18. Very truly I tell you, when you were younger, you used to fasten your own belt and to go, whatever, that talks about how he was supposed to die. And in 19, he said this to indicate the kind of death by which he would glorify God. After this, he said to him, follow me. I'm going to verse 20. Peter turned and saw the disciple whom Jesus loved following them. He was the one who had reclined next to Jesus at the supper and had said, Lord, who is it that is going to betray you? When Peter saw him, he said to Jesus, Lord, what about him? Jesus said to him, if it is my will that he remain until I come, what does that do to you? Follow me. So the rumor spread in the community that the disciple would not die. Yet Jesus did not say to him that he would not die, but if it is my will that he remain until I come, what is that to you? So I'll break it down to you. So basically what happens is Peter saw another disciple with Jesus following together. But you just saw Jesus making the relationship with Peter, putting away from the test of hypocrisy. I know that you love me, Peter. Yeah, I got that. And then right then, Peter looked at over one who's standing right next to him, another disciple following Jesus. And Peter looks at him and looked back to Jesus and said, what about him? Are you going to love him? Are you going to do the same test just like you have for me? Do you hear that? Peter looks at this another disciple and asking Jesus, what about him? What about him? Peter is comparing himself with this disciple. Peter is comparing. What about him? Are you going to ask the same question that you just asked me? What about him? And that long verse that I just shared with you, if it is my will that he remain until I come, what is that to you? Basically means it's none of your business. Jesus saying to Peter, it's none of your business. And instead he said in verse 19, follow me. And this follow, in the original text, if you parse it, it is a second person singular imperative. What it means is that follow me, that follow is directed to Peter. Not 7 disciples, not 6 disciples that are around Peter, but it meant it for Peter only. But when Peter heard that, Peter immediately compared himself with other disciples. What about him? And Jesus assured him, it's none of your business. You, Peter, you just follow me. You follow me. The moment that he thought he passed the test of hypocrisy, he failed the test of envy, which sometimes we fall into that. We compare one another, and we fall short. But listen carefully to this. God calls us, you follow me. It's a second person, singular. You, not as in you all, but you follow me. Though you fail, though you might fail the test, you follow me. You follow me. Out of all this story, I found 3 principles, the three ideas that I gleaned and wanted to share with you. The first thing, when Jesus said to the disciples, go cast the net the other side. If you think about it carefully, the disciples are, quite a few are fishermen. It's their main job. And they're hearing Jesus, they're hearing someone, go cast the net other side. When God calls you, when God is trying to call you, we ought to have openness to change. open to hear what God has to say, and then open to change. Just like the disciples who used to fish for their entire lives, but after hearing Jesus, after hearing the Lord, go cast the net on the other side, they did. Open to change. The second, when God's plan is to move you to a challenging place, just like Peter. When Jesus put him to the test, challenging him, expect to go through a soul searching. Expect to go through asking questions. Expect to be a struggle. I guess it's all through the process. It's not easy to change all of a sudden. If you're being in a new place or a moment or new events, for me, being a new dad, it's not easy. It is really not easy. Expect to do a soul searching, which I've been doing right now. It is really not easy to be a father. I'm not talking about just taking care of the baby through the night, changing the diapers and so forth. No, it's more than that. What does it mean to be a good father? What does it mean to be a good father who leads the family? That is hard. But expect when you are confronting with a new challenges, where you're expected to move to new places, or new positions, whatever that may be, or new chapter of your life, expect to struggle. That's all through the process. Just like Peter did. But when it's clear to follow this new direction, focus fully in God. You heard Jesus saying, follow me. Follow me. God is now telling all of us, follow me. You. Follow me. You. Follow me. Second person singular. Peter, follow me. Steve, follow me. Search our hearts, O God, as we listen